December 30th, 2002. Howie anticipates the Jamie test. I wrote to Howie saying, "Dear Howie, I am in awe. I feel like I am moving in slow motion through a dream, and it feels marvelous. I often think, when reading books, that the author felt a need to flesh out a predetermined number of pages, and that if they just kept it to the important stuff, it would be much more helpful. Your summary of the book gave me a feeling of insight into you that I found very comforting. It also gave me the heart of the message in a very condensed form. Interestedly, it took me all day to read it, because I had to sit and reflect on virtually every sentence to fully experience the idea. Perhaps that is the reason for all of the seemingly unnecessary verbiage in books, so that we have time in between the thoughts that challenge us for our minds to think they are doing something. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. I am increasingly amazed at your depth of understanding and your ability to focus. What impresses me most is the way you have incorporated your learning into your everyday life. You make it appear effortless, and while I am sure it is anything but easy, that is the mark of any expert. I hear it in your speech and in the way you talk about others and life's experiences. There seems to be a constant awareness of, and acceptance of, your inner essence and that of others. I see it in the tranquility that you exude, whether you are driving, talking, amusing me, or even in the heat of passion. Perhaps especially in the heat of passion. Sometimes I get so caught up in the moment that I lose touch with everything outside of my physical pleasure. Your body has that effect. It is only when I start to reconnect to the room that I notice how peaceful your expression is. It draws me in and enfolds me in your serenity. It's like sharing a warm, fuzzy blanket with you. There is an innocence and gentle strength about you that brings tears to my eyes. They are the kind of tears that you would shed at the sight of a glorious sunrise, or at the sound of the wind in the trees, or in the feel of the sand between your toes, or the interaction of a doe and her fawn. It is the overflowing of gratitude for having witnessed something truly beautiful. You are such an inspiration, and your friendship is such a blessing. Movie and dinner sounds great. I started this morning, and I am not in a tremendous amount of pain, so I don't anticipate being any worse by tomorrow. Apparently, the acupuncture from last month is still effective. I have heard there is a good Chinese acupuncturist in St. Pete. I need to get over to see him before next month. I've been a little cranky and emotional, but not nearly as bad as usual without the treatment. I stood in the kitchen and bawled my eyes out yesterday at a poem that one of my volunteers wrote about the life of a stray cat. Rosie always makes me cry, though. She is just the dearest, most sensitive little Native American Indian. She cried the day she graduated from red shirt to yellow shirt and had all of us crying with her. Glad to hear you can make it on the 3rd. Jamie and Daniel rescheduled their vacation so they could go, so you will meet some of my blood kin. Daniel is one of the funniest people you will ever meet, and Jamie is sure to like you because she has an uncanny ability to see through to the heart of a person. This is from me to Howie. No, this is from Howie to me, saying, "Hi, Dad, thank you very much. Merry Christmas." Actually, that's not what he said. Howie said, "I'm sorry you were one of those for whom this time of the month is so difficult. Hope it will not be too bad, and again, if you find yourself not up to it tomorrow, just let me know. Look forward to meeting your troops Friday, and Jamie and Daniel in particular. I guess we'll see if I pass the Jamie test." There is also a pair of Chinese female acupuncturist doctors here in Tampa who have a good reputation if you ever want to try. Dr. Leon Shao is the one I saw some years ago on Virginia Avenue by St. Joseph's, 877-9626. Then there's another email from Howie to me saying, you really write beautifully. I agree that some nonfiction books seem to either have a lot of filler or be repetitive, because to publish a book is expected to have a minimum number of pages. But even when that is not the case, i.e., when the explanations and examples are good, I still find that summarizing it down to the key points is the only way I will remember it. I envy people like Mary Key. She can reel off from memory the 10 points of some book she read 20 years ago. If the devil showed up and offered me that ability, I'd really have to work to hang on to my soul, I think. On applying this stuff, we have our mountains to climb. For me, the search for tranquility has been driven by historically feeling the opposite in quantity and intensity that exceeds what most people experience and is unpleasant and unhealthy, usually tied to performance and acceptance. Finally, in later years, I've managed to have many more minutes of peace and lower the frequency and intensity of the unsettled times. But believe me, it is hardly effortless, despite appearances. Pain can be a very effective motivator. We have discussed this relative to our backs, but it applies to many kinds of discomfort. The awareness of the present, the concept of minutes, etc., I think are great tools. They don't work automatically, or maybe I've not gotten good enough at them yet, but I do find they can help a lot. Today, I felt kind of down about some things that were bothering me. It would have been easy to wallow in it. Once those feelings start, they tend to feed on themselves. It took repeated effort to pull out of that feeling, like pulling your leg almost out of quicksand and then finding that as soon as you get distracted from your effort, it starts to slide back in. But by repeatedly reminding myself of the power we have to influence our mental state, by repeatedly focusing on the precious present moment, taking stock of blessings, asking why I was allowing myself to rack up bad minutes, and doing that repeatedly, even when it did not seem to be working, with the confidence that if I persisted, it would. By this evening, I was much closer to being back to what Vipassana, the meditation seminar, beautifully refers to as being equanimous. The point being that these thoughts are not magical instant cures, but I think they can help us create more times of peace. And with belief and persistence, they can be valuable tools when we find ourselves unable to maintain our peace. People generally take for granted things they have always had and are never deprived of. I think it is easier for me to value moments of peace and put effort into achieving it because I have often not had it. It is funny sometimes how this works on little things. When I grew up, because our means were limited on my mother's secretary's salary, there were some little things that we watched carefully. Orange juice was expensive, so we each got one small glass. The first time I saw someone slug down a huge glass of orange juice, to me it was like watching them set fire to a $100 bill. To this day, when I order a large orange juice, I feel rich and extravagant. In fact, I think I will go pour myself a big glass right after this email. Changing subjects, I hope you are still feeling only the lower end of your discomfort, if any. Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night, but again, if you are in any discomfort, please let me know, and we can change or cancel as needed. Assuming you feel okay, would you like to plan for an early movie, like 5-ish, so we can eat by 8-ish? If so, I'd plan to come around by around 4 or so with a meal to reheat later. But if other time frame works better for you, I'm flexible. On movie choice, there are a couple that have caught my eye. The one I had in mind, about Schmidt with Jack Nicholson, I just realized is not open until Friday, so it's not an option. Analyze That, the comedy sequel to Analyze This with Billy Crystal and Robert De Niro, could be a nice light entertainment. I enjoyed the original. I like 007, even though this one got mixed reviews, but that may not be your first choice. Previews of Catch Me If You Can with Dicaprio and Hanks looks like fun. Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings would be next choices. All are playing at Citrus Park, if that is the closest to your place. But the times vary a lot, which may affect our pick. Analyze That, and then it gives all of the different movie times. Open to other suggestions, of course, and we could also eat early and do one of the 7 or 7:30 shows instead of the early shows. So, your thoughts? Any leaning toward one or the other, or some other one that you see playing? And I wrote to Howie saying, "Dear Howie, I am sorry that today was a challenge for you, but it was good to hear that you were able to work your way through it with the skills you've learned. It's like hearing someone's diet success in the way that inspires me to pay attention. Your notes from the book have helped me to separate myself from the pain today and to remember that the pain is not me and that I don't have to experience it. I even completed a taxing workout without succumbing to self-pity when I usually beg off. I am not as enamored with the writing style of the fellow who wrote How to Be Happy, but I agree with his philosophy wholeheartedly in that we create our own experience. If I only had one tattoo, that would be the reminder. As for movies and times, I like the idea of an early movie. Veterans is actually a little closer if their times are better for you. Either place works for me, since you will probably be driving. As for the movies, I saw Catch Me with Jamie and Daniel, and it was good. If it is your top choice, I barely remember it, and I could watch it again. I also like the original Analyze This, and would suspect the sequel to be good. I fell in love with Sean Connery, and I fear there will never be another Bond for me. The first time I got drunk was while babysitting and watching one of his Bond flicks. The kids told me the stuff in the fridge was punch. We drank the whole pitcher. I had never tasted alcohol, and I didn't know any better. I was snockered and quite in lust with Connery by the time their parents came home and told me it was tequila. I do like the toys in the 007 movies, though. My dream car is still that Batmobile from the 60s. I could hardly stay awake through the first Lord of the Rings, so based on all of that, the ball is back in your court. Signed, Carole.